I just wanted to share with you a recent conversation I had over the weekend. On Saturday, I was down at the Victoria Legislature, and while I was there, I ran across a group that was setting up for an event to promote the awareness of the shortage of family doctors. And I spoke with a young doctor's wife, and I said, "Hey, you guys are setting up for this event. What's going on?" She said, "Well, we just want to draw attention to the fact that doctors need more money." I said, "Well, which doctors?" She said, "General practitioners. There's just not enough money in the system right now, and it's very expensive to run a clinic and to do all of those things, and that's why doctors are not continuing to practice here. They're going to other places, and they're just choosing to leave the profession." I said, "Okay, I know, I've heard of that. I know doctors, and they've said, yeah, it's easier to work at a hospital, or it's easier to be a specialist. Those are just simpler in the sense that they're not as hard as being a GP and being overwhelmed by constant patients." No doubt. But that's nothing new. We've always had that disparity between wages for GPs and specialists, and we've always had chronic problems in our healthcare system. Again, nothing new. I asked her, I said, "What has really changed in the last couple of years? What has led to this shortage of doctors?" And she looked at me and said, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "Well, could it be anything to do with the medical procedure that we've advocated for the last 2 years, where doctors have left the profession because they've been morally conflicted?" She looked at me right away and batted her eyelash and said, "Oh, you're one of those." Now, it's unfortunate that at that moment her mind shut down and we weren't able to have a conversation. Had we been able to, I would have said to her, I said, "Well, let's seriously take a look at how many doctors have left the profession over the last couple of years. And more importantly, why did they leave?" A doctor is free, or should be free, to advocate for the best health care for his or her patient. That's their job. That's their moral fundamental duty. That's the Hippocratic oath: do no harm and do best for their patients. But if their hands have been tied over the last couple of years and they are not able to champion what's best for their patients, what could happen to their morale, their outlook? Could that lead to more depression, more suicide, more of all of those other things that we've recently heard about? Because we've heard that there's been an excess number of deaths of doctors. Now, I posted a video about that recently, and I had some of you who are naysayers say, "Well, that's just due to suicide, accidents, all these variety of things." Okay, so let's say that those are the reasons that's happened and there's no SADS involved. So in other words, there's no sudden adult death syndrome in any of those deaths, which is not the case, but let's pretend there isn't. What is leading to the additional anxiety, suicide, all of these other issues for doctors? What could it be? Could it be the fact that they're not free morally to choose what's best for their patients? Isn't that the job of the doctor? Should they not be able to advocate what's best in healthcare? And we've got bureaucrats, pharmaceutical companies telling them what to do. I know of a doctor personally who told me recently that he cannot even tell a patient that they're overweight and fat and need to lose weight. He did that with a patient, a female patient, about 3 months ago. She complained and he was reprimanded. He was told that's not the polite way to do it, and he has to be nice about it. Well, how do you tell somebody who's maybe 100 pounds overweight in a nice way that they should lose weight? Because let's face it, if we are following science, and we know that the last couple of years, if we look at COVID as an example, the number one comorbidity, the factor that would lead to the greatest chances of a negative outcome, would be obesity. That was a number one. So why were we not hearing the champion of losing weight as being the number one way to safeguard against a negative outcome? Well, we didn't hear it. Why? Because it wasn't worth anybody's while to promote it. Government wasn't going to promote it because they'd offend people, and there was no money in it for the pharmaceutical companies. So it was far better to drug people, put them on something, instead of championing what's best for them. So I can understand the frustration of a doctor if he or she can't even tell a patient to do what's medically right in the best interest of their health, and the only solution is to medicate them or give them surgery or do something else. Now, I'm not against any of those things because there's times and places for that. But prevention, folks, that would definitely go a long way of reducing the strain in our medical system. Now, the other thing I would have mentioned to her is I said, well, why would some doctors have chosen to leave the profession? Given the fact they've spent years and years educating themselves, setting up practices, doing all these things, why would these people suddenly leave the profession over the last couple of years. Why would they want to forsake their patients? Now, they would have to be obviously very conflicted to do this. Something major must have caused this. What could it possibly be? Well, could it be the fact that from up above, they were mandated on the best medical care for their patients with respect to the latest treatment for COVID? Could that have had anything to do with it, where doctors who felt morally that that wasn't the right way for their patients were now suddenly forced to choose that as a direction? Well, perhaps. And that could have led to them leaving the profession. And we know that for every doctor who leaves, thousands of patients are left behind. And those patients have a myriad of problems which are exacerbated and when they're not treated, and then they clog up the system even more. So the bottom line is that money alone is not going to solve this problem. We need to be able to have doctors who can advocate and be able to not only suggest, but able to implement the best care for their patients. That should not be interfered by bureaucrats, pharmaceutical companies, or anyone else. These are medical professionals who should be given all the facts so that they can provide their clients informed consent. I can't imagine how painful or how much anxiety it must be if you're a physician who's been advocating for a certain medical procedure, only later to find out as facts start dropping that maybe that medical procedure wasn't in the best interest of your patients. I know for me, I would be terribly troubled by that. And I know there's a lot of good doctors who have been and are. So what I would advocate that we all do is we reach out to our public health authorities, we talk to your ministers of health and say, put medicine back in the hands of doctors. Allow them to be free to choose and advocate what's best for patients. That's not the job of bureaucrats. Anyway, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Please post any comments you have in the comment section. You can also follow me on my Rumble, on my Locals account. I know there's a lot of new subscribers who've recently joined this channel. Please watch some of your other videos of mine, and I look forward to seeing you next time.